Anyone looking at the disclosure communities in the oil industry and the UFO disclosure, after a while starts to connect dots, at least I do. Alberta's oil industry really took off there in 1947, same year as Roswell. There had been earlier discoveries in Waterton Park, what is now Waterton Park, and Turner Valley, but the big expansion really began with Leduc in 1947. And if we had had the sorts of energy technologies that are supposed to exist in order to make these saucers fly, and which have supposedly been reverse engineered in dark budgets, then there probably never would have been an oil industry as we know it. So there are these parallels. You see, when people try to blow the whistle and say that there's been a cover-up for all these years, and the people doing these things act in much the same ways. Within the UFO disclosure industry, some of the ones with the biggest audiences or the most respected are Stephen Greer, Tom DeLonge, Linda Moulton Howe, and David Wilcock. And they all have one thing in common, despite their apparent disagreements and internal squabbles. They're all global warmers, or in David Wilcock's case, a solar system warmer. They're all saying that this stuff is a threat, and that if we get disclosure and get these new technologies out, we need them to save us from this horrible threat of rain. Rain is going to kill us all. Paul Hellyer is similar. He said that this is such a horrible worldwide crisis in global warming, we will need aliens to save us from it. It's pretty much the same thing as we need the government to save us from it, and we need a world government to save us from it. Same message. Yeah, all of it false. And in the oil disclosure industry, it's the same thing. We say we have these enormous liabilities because of the cleanup costs that have accumulated over all these years, and that now the oil companies can't afford to pay for because they've all these assets that are no longer worth anything have been transferred to companies that are going bankrupt and can't afford to clean up. So the people who are supposedly award-winning and the best journalists in the industry for revealing this sort of stuff are also global warmers. They're also saying that it's a horrible threat, that releasing carbon, the increases in carbon and all that are terrible. And this is despite the fact that they say that oil industry regulators have been captured by the oil industry. So there's no longer any appreciable difference between what the oil companies say and what the government says, because the government is just a front for the oil industry. But if that's true, then how can you hang on to the belief that only the oil industry, only the government is telling us the truth, that global warming is a big threat, while the oil industry is saying it isn't? Can't be true.